discriminated. Chinese are discriminated, and actually in Indonesia, still they have 8 million Chinese there, and they are always threatened because of the Indonesian people try to some give them threat for their assets and their lives and so forth. Still now. Okay. But Chinese is very calm people, and they just only chasing money. And this is different from Malay people. They are very rude to how to get money. Okay. Next is I'm going to explain this history of Malaysia. Sriwijaya is this is the empire. I'm going to show you this empire is not actually in Malaysia. This is actually Indonesia. Indonesia, Sumatra, and actually Sriwijaya is occupied this place, right? Malaysia. And I think very close. This is current name is Penang, right? Penang, Sriwijaya, and this is a history of Sriwijaya history. Let's see, skip it. This is 2 minutes 30 second video, but this is talking about Sriwijaya, and then after that this is decline from 11th century, and 13th century Sriwijaya lost control completely and moving to next stage. And so long years, 7 to 8 years till 11 years, right? And next one is also after that, 14th century is this is a famous person, Parameswara. He's control this country and trading, Arab, Chinese, and Indian trading. Then after that, 16th century, Portuguese came to those areas, Malacca. Sriwijaya here. I come to Malacca. And Malacca, and then later is Dutch came to Johor Valley. Johor. Okay, but this video I show you. Maybe you saw just you came here, right? I show you just Portuguese settlement. Still they have Portuguese settlement there, and at Malacca. Still they have some Portuguese homes there, and people still live there. And the Portuguese import Christianity to Malaysia. Still they have some Christianity there. Okay. So now history of Malaysia, I'm going back to history of Malaysia. I'm going to show you, this is a very good video. History of Malaysia. Very short video, so I go.
Malaysia's history is long and detailed. There are records showing that there were early humans living there 1.83 million years ago. So let's have a quick rundown of its history. 40,000 years ago, the first modern humans established themselves in Malaysia. 10,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers settled in Malaysia. A few hundred years later, Stone Age farmers stole the land. Then in 200 CE, state rose up in Malaya, and here on they became more civilized, with heavy influence from India. Now we're up to the 1500s, where Malaya is a prominent trading post with a long history, and now a few state sultanates, with Malacca being the richest and dominant state. Malaya's power soon gave notice to the Portuguese. In 1511, they sent a fleet led by Alfonso de Albuquerque to capture it. This was successful, and now the Portuguese had the powerhouse of Malacca. So with Malacca's power, the Portuguese heavily taxed the local ports, forced Catholicism on the Malays, and attempted to overrule their culture. Malaysia was still just the indigenous, as the Portuguese posed no plans to settle Malaysia, as their only interest was wealth. This benefited the Portuguese by giving them large amounts of wealth while not spending any resources maintaining the state. We know this did not leave lasting impacts because if today you go to Malaysia, only 9% is Christian. But anyway, these acts made the indigenous upset.
9% is Christian. This is because of Portuguese. Right?
Spreading the air to Malacca. Here, the Sultanate of Johor was founded. Johor was a resistance to Portuguese Malacca, although this would have proved to be short-lived. By 1600, the Johor Sultanate was one of the most powerful trading states. They made several attempts to recapture Malacca throughout the early 16th century, but 100 years later, Johor made an alliance with the Dutch. That's right, Johor was going to resist the Portuguese by allying with the Dutch. It took 3 sieges to capture Portuguese Malacca, the third siege being finally successful in 1641 after a long, bloody and terrible battle. So what did the Dutch do to Malacca? Nothing. Yep, that's right, nothing. Instead, the Dutch just drove out all the other Europeans from the area, feasting on riches and the power that the powerhouse of Malacca could bring. The Dutch benefited from the wealth, and the Malays benefited from the trade. The interesting part of Malaysia was that up until this point, the only impacts colonization had on Malaysia were very minor, and the culture had not really changed at all. However, that all changed later in the 18th century. Finally, Britain looked to Malaysia, after owning most of India. In 1824, after a lot of disagreement, wars and fights, the British and Dutch divided the region of the Malay Peninsula between them. The Dutch surrendered Malacca to the British. In 1853, the British government stopped charging duty imports of tin. As a consequence, exports of tin from Malaysia to Britain went through the roof. After the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, this further boosted exports of tin. All was being well until 1871, where the Sultan of Perak died. This resulted in a massive quarrel on whoever should control the mines. This didn't last long though, as one man claimed to be the rightful heir of the Sultan, Raja Abdullah. He made an agreement with the British. If the British recognized Abdullah as the Sultan, in return he would let them have control of the area and let the British be their quote-unquote advisor. In 1895, all protected states were persuaded to form one federation. Up until the Second World War, Britain had total control of Malaysia. In the early 20th century, a new industry rose and grew rapidly: rubber production. The Malayan rubber industry was a boom, growing the Malaysian economy to what it is today. Overall, the British really benefited from the colonization of Malaysia as they had total control and the power of the local people. In 1941, the Japanese invaded the Malay Peninsula, driving out the British. The British basically withdrew its troops, surrendering the land to the Japanese. However, the Japanese hardly did anything to it. They really only used it for power and as a mini-military setup during the World War II. On the 8th of February 1942, they started expanding their power by invading the regions near it. This was a military disaster for the British. No one really benefited from the Japanese.